بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to start another book on Islamic spirituality, and after lots of thinking and consultation, my mind, alhamdulillah, was settled on the book Uddat al-Daa'i by the late Ibn Fahd al-Hilli. This book, from the time I purchased it in my study time, I don't know was how many years ago, was very dear to me, and I sometimes have referred to this in some of my lectures. And then these days when I was thinking about different books, alhamdulillah, again came to my mind that this can be a good option. And in particular, we are living a time in which more than ever we need du'as. This is Salahul Mu'min, Salah of the Prophets. So we, inshallah, will try to study this book, bi'Iznillah. We ask Allah for help, for guidance, for assistance, for tawfiq. And I hope, inshallah, it would help us also in making our moments of dua, inshallah, more meaningful and, inshallah, more powerful and impactful, bi'Iznillah. So let us introduce the author and the book first, and then inshallah we will go into the contents of the book. This book is also available in English. I have seen many years ago the English edition, I think was published by Ansarian, if I'm not mistaken. I couldn't find it online, but I think brothers have managed to find somewhere, not the PDF, but the link, and I think Brother Mustafa can share, or maybe has already shared. Also, you might have received the PDF of the Arabic original text. So you have the English translation, you have the Arabic, but inshallah we will study from beginning to the end, bi'Iznillah. So we start with introducing, inshallah, the author. The author is called Jamaluddin Ahmad ibn Shamsuddin Muhammad ibn Fahd al-Hilli al-Asadi, from the city of Hilla, from the tribe of Asad. He was born in 757 after Hijrah and died in 841. So he was 84 years old when he passed away. A respected faqih, muhaddith, and a scholar of akhlaq and spirituality. His main reputation is for his work on akhlaq and dua and irfan, although he has many books on fiqh. Inshallah, I will mention some of his books on fiqh. But the thing that maybe he is most known for is this book, Uddat al-Daa'i wa Najah al-Sa'i, the same book that we are going to study. He was born, it seems, in the city of Hilli, and he also spent part of his life in the city of Karbala, and his grave is now in Karbala near Khaymegah. You can find also the picture of his grave, on internet. There is a dome, and his grave is, known. He studied under some of the students of Shahid Awwal, the first martyr. Shahid the Awwal, the one who compiled al-Lum'at al-Dimashqiyya and other books. And also he studied with some of the students of Fakhrul Muhaqqiqin. He himself had also many students, and he had also some debate with some people who were questioning the school of Ahlul Bayt. And it is said that in the year 840, so just a year before his demise, the governor of Baghdad, called Espand Mirza, invited him and some of the Shia from Hilli and other places to do munazara and debate with some of the ulama who were not Shia. And in the debate, he managed to convince the governor that the position of the Shia is strong, and the governor converted to Shia Islam and even made sermon with the name of 12 Imams and coined with the names of Ahlul Bayt. Although this wasn't, maybe imposed on him, or maybe, he had to accept, but anyway, he was so capable that he was able to prove that the position of the Shia is strong and reliable. Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli says that he was also very high in his own spirituality. So not only he had great knowledge of this field and compiled a very good book, but also he says that he himself had very high in a spiritual position. Even some people say that this is very important. Some people say that Ibn Fahd Hilli and Sayyid ibn Tawus and Sayyid Bahrul Ulum were from Kummalin, from those who were, perfect, as much as a human being can be perfect. In first year of Hawza Akhlaq series, we said perfection here doesn't mean absolute perfection. That only belongs to Allah. But when we say insan kamil, perfect human being, means a human being which in humanity has become complete. So maybe in English it's better to say complete than perfect. But anyway, you have to understand what we mean by perfection here. So, Allama Tabatabai Rizwanullah Ta'ala Alay reports that his great teacher, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Qadhi Tabatabai, said that in the history of Irfan, 3 people reached tamakkun fi tawheed. They were really settled and established in tawheed. One was Sayyid ibn Tawus, one was Ahmad ibn Fahd al-Hilli, and one was Sayyid Muhammad Mahdi Bahrul Ulum. So we are dealing with such a great person as a scholar, as also a spiritual person. He has many books. Maybe the most famous one is this book, Uddat al-Daa'i wa Najah al-Sa'i. Udda means the equipment, means Udda. So if someone is going to make prayer, Daa'i, the one who makes dua, needs some equipment, needs some means. This book provides the one who wants to make dua with adequate means, inshallah. And success of the one who makes efforts. Najahu sa'i. Sa'i, the one who makes efforts. Sa'i. Because without making efforts, we cannot get anywhere. Dua by itself is making an effort. Therefore, if you cannot make even dua, then you are the most incompetent person. But we make dua, we also work. Recently, I had a lecture for Shia sisters and Benedictine sisters in Kenya. I was not able to be in person, but I gave it online about prayer and work. Inshallah, you can find the lecture. So we have prayer, we have work. But the prayer of a person who works is the best thing he can do. The prayer of someone who works. So you work, you pray, but energy comes from prayer. So work is the condition for acceptance of prayer. Another book is al-Muhadhab al-Bari' fi Sharh al-Mukhtasar al-Nafi'. Mukhtasar al-Nafi' is a book on fiqh by Muhaqqiq al-Hilli, Rizwanullah ta'ala alayh, from the same city of Hilla. The famous Muhaqqiq al-Hilli, the one who has also Shara'i al-Islam, which is a textbook in the Hawzas. So he has a commentary on another book of Muhaqqiq al-Hilli, which is al-Mukhtasar al-Nafi'. It's called al-Muhadhab al-Bari' fi Sharh al-Mukhtasar al-Nafi'. He has also al-Fusul fi Da'awat A'qab al-Fara'id, about taqibat of the wajibat after salat wajib. You know, we have taqibat. We actually ended adab al-salat with the discussion about taqibat. He has book al-Muqtasar min Sharh al-Mukhtasar and other books. Even he has a book that it is said it was result of a dream that he had. This is of course, you know, dream is not hujjah by itself, but sometimes some dreams have some signs of being valid and reliable. For example, if you have a dream of ma'soom, then that dream can be a sign of validity. Or sometimes in a dream that is about something that you never knew, but it's a fact. But even if a dream has some parts which definitely are valid, it doesn't mean everything is, you know, valid or everything should be interpreted literally. There are many things, but it's good to know. It can be a kind of bishara, not necessarily a hujjah. So it is said that in his dream he saw Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam holding the hand of Sayyid Murtada Rizwanullah ta'ala alayh. You know the story of Sayyid Murtaza and Sayyid al-Radhi, two great brothers, both very knowledgeable and very pious. Sayyid al-Radhi compiled Nahj al-Balagha. Sayyid Murtaza was the leader of the Shia. He has many books. And you know the story, that Sheikh Mufid in dream saw Lady Fatima bringing Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein to him and saying, Ya Sheikh, allimhum al-fiqh. And when he woke up, he was wondering, what does it mean? What does it mean, Lady Fatima asking me to teach Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein fiqh? Then later, the mother of Sayyida Murtaza and Sayyida Radi, who, if I'm not mistaken, was also called Fatima, brought these two young boys and said, Sheikh, allimhum al-fiqh. So he had great respect for them, and then of course he saw in them also special talents and piety, etc. So Sayyida Murtaza is very special scholar again. Alhamdulillah, we have such great figures. Allah has blessed us over centuries with ulama that we can always be, proud of them, alhamdulillah. And of course we have to be grateful. So Ibn Fahd in the dream had Amirul Mu'mineen and Sayyida Murtaza. Amirul Mu'mineen holding the hand of Sayyida Murtaza, and they were walking in the shrine of Amirul Mu'mineen, في الروضة المطهرة الغربية. And both of them had green silk on them as dress. They were dressed with green silk. Ibn Fahd went forward and said salam to them, and they gave response. And then Sayyid Murtaza told him, Ahlan bin Nasirina Ahl al-Bayt. Welcome, the one who helps us, Ahlul Bayt. It shows Sayyid Murtaza is in a very high position. Then Sayyid Murtaza told him, what books have you compiled? So he mentioned the books that he had compiled by that time. Then Sayyid Murtaza said, Sannif kitaban mushtamilan ala tahrir al-masail wa tasheel al-turuq wa dalail. Compile a book in which explain problems of fiqh and make reasoning clear, straightforward, etc. And even said, start the book with this, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah al-Muqaddas bi-Kamalihi an mushabahat al-Makhluqat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, all praises to Allah, who because of His perfection, He is to be glorified with respect to having similarity to His creatures. So we have to glorify Him and say that He has no similarity to any creature. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. And when Sheikh Ibn Fahd woke up, started writing the book At-Tahrir, and started with this sentence of Sayyida Murtaza. So, very knowledgeable person and very learned person as well. The book Uddat al-Daa'i wa Najah al-Sa'i, as I said, maybe is the most famous book by him, and also the most famous book on dua. Alhamdulillah, we have books that especially recently have been compiled about dua. But if you ask people, scholars, tell us, for example, 3 books on dua in the whole history which are the best, they would mention Uddat al-Daa'i. If you say 2, maybe they would say again Uddat al-Daa'i. I'm not talking about books containing dua. I'm not talking about the like Misbah al-Mutahajjid or Misbah Kaf'ami or Iqbal of Sayyid ibn Tawus. I'm talking about dua, not containing dua. Okay, so we are not talking about the books of dua. We are talking about books explaining dua. So it's something that no scholar is able to write a book, give a lecture on book without referring to this book. It's amazing. Of course, it doesn't mean that it is perfect. It doesn't mean that everything is here, but it's a great source. It has an introduction. In this introduction that inshallah we will study tonight, he talks about definition of dua, what does dua mean literally and technically, and also refers to a set of hadiths that are known as akhbaru man balagh, or if you are familiar with ilm usul al-fiqh, we have the rule of at-tasamuh fi adillat al-sunan based on these akhbaru man balagh. Inshallah we'll explain that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged us to act upon the hadith that we hear, which recommends a certain act and promises some reward. Inshallah we'll explain it. Then there are 6 sections after introduction and before conclusion. So there are 6 sections. First is about encouraging to make dua, intellectually, rationally, and also based on the Quran and Hadith. He says that why we should make dua. The second section is about the factors that can lead to acceptance of dua. He mentions dua itself, the timing for dua, the place of dua, and other factors. The third section is about Daa'i, the one who makes dua. Who are the people whose du'as are accepted and who are the people whose du'as are not accepted? The fourth section is how to make dua or read dua if it is a dua is transmitted to us. Some of the etiquette and manners of making dua. And the fifth section is about dhikr. And the sixth is about recitation of the Quran, because that is also connected to the discussion of dua. And then in the conclusion he has a discussion about al-Asma'ul Husna, the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he mentions the hadith about 99 beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a breakdown of the book. So we talked about the significance of the author of the book and the breakdown of the book. Now, trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we start with the introduction. This book has been published many times in different countries in its original Arabic language, but there are some editions that have some kind of research also along with them about the authenticity of different versions. They have used different reliable manuscripts, and also they added some comments, etc. Like the one that the PDF that inshallah you have received is the one that is prepared by a person called Mubahidiyya Qummi, and that is a very good edition of the book. So in that edition, the actual book starts on page 11. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Sami' ad-du'a. Alhamdulillah سامع الدعاء. If you want to know the book starts from here. ودافع البلاء ومفيض الضياء وكاشف الظلماء وباسط الرجاء وسابغ النعماء ومجزل العطاء ومردف الآلاء سامك السماء وماسك البطحاء. So ulama had this style that in their khutbah, in their sermon at the beginning of the book, they refer somehow to the contents of the book. It is called in Ilm al-Balagha Bara'atul Istihlal. So at the beginning of the book, you somehow point to the discussions that you are going to have in the book. Since this book is about dua, he says, Alhamdulillah, sami'id dua. All praise to Allah who listens to dua. Wadafi'il bala. He repels, removes calamities. He grants light. He removes darkness. He spreads hope. He showers blessings. He gives great gifts. He keeps giving bounties. He holds the sky and he raises the sky and holds Batha. Batha is another name for Mecca, or the valley in which there is Mecca. Then he sends salutations to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family, wa ala alihi. And then he says, wa ba'd. This is the beginning. Normally they have khutbah and then they say amma ba'd or wa ba'd. Fa inna Allah ta'ala min wufur karamihi allama ad-du'a wa nadaba ilay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his abundant generosity, wufur means abundance. Wufur karamihi means abundant generosity or abundance of generosity. He taught dua. He taught us that there is such a thing as dua that you can make. And nadaba ilay, also he recommended us to do dua. He didn't just say there is such a thing. He encouraged us and urged us to make use of this. وَأَلْهَمَ السُّؤَالِ. He inspired us to ask him, to make dua and also to ask him. وَحَثَّ عَلَيْهِ, and encouraged. وَرَغِبَ فِي مُعْرَقَبَ تَرْغِيبَ, and also again encouraged to deal with it and embark on it. وَجَعَلَ فِي مُنَاجَاتِهِ سَبَبًا نَجَاةً. Allah has made in his munajat, in whispering to him, sababan, the cause for success or salvation. Sorry, najat means salvation, save, to be saved. Najat, najah means success. وَفِي سُؤَالِهِ مَقَالِدُ miftah. Maqalid is like miftah, keys for gifts is in asking. Mafatih al-hibat, the same thing, keys for gifts. وَجَعَلَ لِإِجَابَةِ الدُّعَاء أَسْبَابًا. For acceptance of dua, he has made some causes, like who are the people who are going to make dua, what conditions, what times, what places. These are the things that we are going to discuss. So he says, فَوَزَعْنَا هَذِهِ الرِّسَالَةَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. We made this book to deal with these issues. وَسَمَّيْنَاهُ عُدَّةَ الدَّاعِي وَالنَّجَاحَ السَّاعِي. And we called it the means for the one who makes dua and the success for the one who makes efforts. And there is introduction and 6 like sections or chapters. أما المقدمة ففي تعريف الدعاء والترغيب فيه. The introduction is about definition of dua and encouraging to make dua. So this is the beginning of the book, the beginning of discussion. He says, literally, ad-du'a lughatan. So in Arabic language, literally dua, even before Islam, it had this meaning. An-nida wal istid'a. When you call someone, you say da'awtu fulanan when you call him, or you shout, I say, someone need to come if he's far, for example. إذا ناديته وصحت به صاح يصيح means to shout. This is the literal meaning, to call. You can call even another human being. Yeah, the literal meaning is not only for calling Allah or someone who is higher than you. You can call someone at your level or even lower than you, literally. But istilahan, technically, dua is used for someone who is lower, requesting someone who is higher, with humbleness, with humility. طلب الأدنى للفعل من الأعلى على جهة الخضوع والاستكانة. Therefore, when we say istid'a or dua, for example, I ask my teacher to do something, I ask my father to do something for me, I ask my leader, for example, for something, or above all, we ask Allah for something. This can be called dua or istid'a. And then most specifically, it is only for calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in a very specific sense, we only use it for calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, because there was a beep. I thought I missed you.
Yeah, I think that beep was just saying 15 minutes.
Okay. Then he says, because the purpose of compiling this book is to encourage people to make dua and also to have good opinion about Allah. When they make dua and when they ask, they should have good opinion, they should be very hopeful. So he says, you must be aware of what has been passed on to us from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam about dua and encouraging to make dua. And he starts with hadith of man balagh. Sheikh Saduq reports from Muhammad ibn Yaqub Kulayni through his own chains of narration from Imams. أن من بلغه شيء من الخير فعمل به كان له من الثواب ما بلغه وإن لم يكن الأمر كما نقل إليه. This is the conclusion. This is not the wording. The wording comes later. But this is the result of what, for example, Sheikh Saduq has reported from Kulayni, from Imams. That if you receive a report about a good action, you should make this dua, you should make this ziyarah, and with the hope that this is authentic, you make it dua, this ziyarah, this action, recommended action, you will be given sawab even if this was not said by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, we have lots of discussion about this in Ilm Usul al-Fiqh, And something important is it should be something that can make sense and is compatible with other things that we have. Not that someone says something superstitious and you do it, or something that doesn't make sense and you do it. But something that makes sense, it's compatible with our teachings, with our framework, but we are not 100% sure. It's very likely. For example, it is reported that Imam Sadiq said, أن من بلغه شيء من الخير فعمل به كان له أجر ذلك. If someone receives something from good actions and he acts upon it, he would be given the reward. وإن كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يقله, even if the Prophet had not said it. Or Muhammad ibn Yaqub from Ali ibn Ibrahim, from his father Ibrahim ibn Hashim, from ibn Abi Umayr, from Hisham ibn Salim, great people. From Imam Sadiq, again, man sami'a shay'an min al-thawab ala shay'an fasana'ahu. He hears some of the recommended actions with a promise of reward, and he does it. كان له أجره وإن لم يكن على ما بلغه. Even if the fact was different, it was not. We have even from Sunni chains of narrator similar to the Shia. For example, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, through Sunni chain of narration, quotes from Rasulullah, man balaghahu anillahi fadilatun فأخذها وعمل بما فيها إيمانا بالله ورجاء الثواب. If someone receives something about something that Allah loves, he acts upon it. He said, this is something that if you do it, Allah will love it and reward. Out of Iman and with hope of getting the reward, he does it. أعطاه الله تعالى ذلك وإن لم يكن كذلك. Allah gives him that reward even if this was not as he heard. So he says, Ibn Fahd says, this has become mujma'an alay, something that fariqain, Shia and Sunni, have consensus about it. So you don't have to be 100% sure about these du'as or ziyarat or recommended acts. As long as, of course, I am very afraid of, some people doing superstitious things. But it has, for example, when you hear from ulama, when there is in a book of hadith, when something is not rejected, when something makes sense, it's compatible with our frameworks, then you do make niyyah of, inshallah, getting sawab. Not that, for example, someone says, if you, for example, I don't know, I had a dream of, for example, Prophet saying that you write this on 100 copies of the Quran or Kitab al-Dua in Haram and you will get this reward. This is not acceptable. Who had this dream? And dream is not hujjah, and also you don't have right to write on the book which is waqf or belongs to the shrine, or etc. So sometimes people may do it unwisely. But what we have in our scholarly traditions is that, for example, you see in the Risale or in the books Mafati and similar, recommended actions. And for this, we don't need to be as sure as when faqih wants to issue a fatwa. Fatwa is demanding more evidence, convincing evidence. Here, there is a need for evidence, but doesn't have to be convincing, as long as there is nothing wrong about it. Okay, inshallah, in the next session, we will start the first section of the book, Al-Babul Awwal fil Hath ala Du'a wa Yab'athu alayhi al-Aql wa Naql, is about encouraging and urging to make dua, and how we will see aql and naql, reason and the scriptures urge us and motivate us to make dua. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.